driving down to Dangany Huish, so Dingle, West Kerry in Ireland, and I'm going to Féile na Bealtaine, which is a festival, an annual festival that's on, and the drama group that I'm in, called Na Clasacha, is putting on a play there. So we're an Irish language drama group, so the weekend will be kind of an Irish language speaking weekend away, which is something I really enjoy and I've been looking forward to for a while. So yesterday I was supposed to set out on this trip, and I set out, woke up this morning at 5 and left at about 7 a.m. So I'm on the road nice and early. But yesterday I was supposed to go, but I was sick. So I woke up on Friday morning and I had a very slight headache, and then I took some paracetamol, went back to bed, and then woke up with a worse one, and then just was running out of options. This is part of the problem that I have with sickness. I was running out of options, and I think I took some other paracetamol, and then eventually I started vomiting. So I was vomiting for hours then until last night. I don't know what time, probably 10 p.m, 11 p.m, midnight maybe. And then finally it stopped and I went to sleep until I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning. So this is just something that I was just thinking about on this trip on the way down. It's like how much physical sickness affects just everyday life, and particularly at this point I started getting this is a year anniversary to the first point that I started getting this sickness. So about a year ago I started getting sick once a week, somewhat mysteriously, and it was in April, and now it's May, 1st of May, so got a speed check there, and I'm just under the limit, thank God. Just under the speed limit, which is fine. It's funny, even when I'm obeying the rules and travelling under the speed limit, I still get that shock when I see a Garda at the side of the road with the speed camera. And the assumption is that that there's some corrective action to be taken, so I have to reduce the speed even though I'm below it. Anyway, so it was this time last year, so April 2025, I was getting sick, and I went to the doctor about it, and initially it looked like it was UTI. So I stopped swimming. Swimming was something I was doing for 4 years, and I stopped it because I thought that maybe that was what was causing it, the UTI that I got. And ironically, I went on a year-long investigation as to what the hell was going wrong with me, and the ridiculous and frustrating thing is that I don't know a year later what the hell is causing this. But initially I thought it was a UTI, and I thought maybe I'd got it from swimming, and so I gave up the swimming for a long time. And this is one of the frustrating things, because some doctors were saying, no, that couldn't cause it. Then 6 months later I mentioned it, that I had given up swimming because of it, and the doctor said, yeah, I've seen some people in who had been sea swimming and they get infections from sea swimming, and I don't know if he implied that it could cause damage to the kidneys as well. But this is the kind of conflicting thing. You see so many different doctors and you hear so many different opinions, and it's just partly what I do is just write it all down every time I see people, so that I can get some coherence, because I know the next time I'm going to hear some totally different story, and I have to just mash them all together and hopefully get some sense from it all. But anyway, this time last year was horrible time with you, April 2025, because I was sick quite a lot. And up to then, I'd been very physically well. I've been blessed with being very good physical health up to that point. But last year then was pretty horrible. Because this kind of weekly sickness, and it was almost like clockwork, that it would come on almost once a week, every week. Thursday, sometimes a Friday, maybe sometimes Saturday, maybe sometimes Sunday. It was probably spread evenly around those days later in the week, and everybody would automatically question me. Doctors would say, okay, is there something happening during those particular times? Is it less stress during that time of the week? And I don't know, there was no real insight in that particular perspective. But so that happened in April. The first possibility of what was going on was a UTI. So that was the first investigations of many. And I've had many different medical tests now over the last 12 months, which is a good thing. It's good to get checked out anyway, which is good, but it has not really thrown much light onto what's causing the sickness. And the sickness is two things really. It's a headache, and then sometimes, not always, combined with physical sickness with vomiting. So it's two things, sometimes separate, and the combination of the two is something that the doctors find particularly tricky to diagnose. So it happened in April, got a series of tests done. They found, one of my kidneys wasn't in great condition, so that was a suspect for what was causing it. But still, it doesn't answer the question. Some people would be saying that if you had an infection in the kidney, that it would cause kind of fever-like symptoms, which I don't get, and it wouldn't cause the sickness or headaches. So this is the frustrating thing. One of the feelings that I had, one of the takeaways, was just the frustrating part of being in the medical system, whereby somebody has to play detective to try and find out what's wrong with you, but you get so many different opinions and you go down so many different roads that it seems to be a mixture of guesswork and just stabbing in the dark sometimes. And sometimes you don't even come to the end of it, which a year later I don't think I am. And sometimes terms like migraine, are thrown around, and then like that, I find that frustrating as well, because migraine is just a term, it's just a label, and it doesn't really tell me, all right, what's going on, what am I doing wrong, and what's causing this. So there's a number of possible explanations. It's stress. It could be things like, allergies, but it could be other aspects as well. But the frustrating thing is, I've done a huge amount to change. I've looked through all the possible factors, and I've implemented a lot of change in order to address it. So one would be hydration. So I've massively increased the amount of water I intake to try and make sure that I'm hydrated all the time as much as possible. Sleep is one thing that's huge. Now, that's one thing that's listed a lot for headaches, but my problem with sleep is detecting, and I've done a whole video on that, pretty big one, an 8-hour long video of filming myself sleeping, because I wanted to know what the hell is going on when I sleep, because obviously it's something that it's kind of a bit invisible to us. So I have restless leg syndrome, so my legs are kind of being restless while I sleep, but also I've noticed through the aid of the Apple Watch, which is fantastic, I've been able to analyse that my deep sleep is quite low. So I'd get 8 hours of sleep, or maybe sometimes more, 9, maybe even 10 hours, but I would wake up tired quite a lot. And then I'd check, and the culprit seems to be that even though I'm getting 8 or 9 hours, I'm getting very little deep sleep. Sometimes 20 minutes, 30 minutes, occasionally maybe 45 minutes, and rarely I might get up to an hour. And they say that I should be getting between an hour and an hour and a half. So that is very frustrating, but I have implemented a lot of things one of the things to improve sleep and deep sleep was magnesium, and it improves restless leg, and it's supposed to improve migraine as well, so I started on that. I would say that might have caused some improvement, I hope. What else? Exercise. Yeah, I've ramped up exercise. I would be quite good at exercise, I would have thought up to now as well, but I've increased that. And sometimes they say with tension headaches that exercise can alleviate it, so I would deliberately go for a half an hour walk maybe in the morning to try and decrease stress and try and, if it is a tension headache, to try and prevent that. So what else have I tried? I mean, diet, something that I could get better at, certainly. I suppose I felt maybe a bit spoiled in that I felt I could get away with not exact. Well, I mean, I would say I'm reasonably healthy eater, but then there would be at night time. I mean, nighttime is probably the time that I probably eat the worst. So I wake up in the morning and I eat brilliantly at the start of the day, and then it kind of gets progressively worse as the day goes on. So I'd have porridge and in the morning, and then in the evening, kind of the food would get probably where I love spicy food and probably rich food, and so that the diet could be improved, and I think I've made changes there. Coffee is another one. Coffee is something that I've loved since, God, I think I trace it back to my sister got a present of a cafetiere or ground coffee when we were younger, and back then, growing up, coffee meant chiseling granules out of a congealed Nescafe tin, and it was at best a tolerable experience. But then I think my sister got a cafetiere with real ground coffee beans, and it was like something within me just awoke. An addiction, the likes of which I've never really seen before. I mean, I was opening up a tin of Illy coffee at home, and just the smell, the aroma, and looking at the ground beans, just there's few addictions that compare with that. And in some ways, all the way through my life, I looked at it as such a benign addiction. I mean, you could do far worse, than being just addicted to caffeine. And I would read quite often how it's beneficial to you. And in fact, I've kind of gone on a journey through this sickness where at the start I thought, right, I have to cut out or eliminate coffee. And I tried that because I would get sick, not have any coffee or anything. I wouldn't be able to consume anything that day. And then the next day I would feel a bit shook as well, and I wouldn't have coffee. And then I thought, okay, I'm on a 2-day roll, I'll try and keep it going. So sometimes I would keep it going for a week, but I felt I was getting constipation as a result of that. So I decided, right, maybe it's not a good idea to go off coffee like that, or if I am coming off coffee, it'll have to be in a more managed way. So but now I've actually come full circle, and I think actually coffee is probably a beneficial thing for me, because a lot of what I read about coffee, read something that it's actually very good for you recently, obviously probably in small doses. So that's another source of headaches and things, so I have to be aware of that. So I have cut down. I used to have it's hard to believe now, but I used to have 2 pots of coffee in the morning, each with 4 heat dessert spoons of grind coffee. So now I've cut that back to 1 pot with 3 spoons of ground coffee. So that's, it's probably a third. So I'm down to probably a third of what I used to have. So that's quite a reduction. That coffee in the morning is just the most pleasurable coffee of all for me. I think once I've had that morning coffee, everything else is just I'm chasing something that I'm never going to be able to get. So it's not as enjoyable anyway. That first pot that I have is the one I really enjoy. So it's not that hard to cut down the second one. It's like sometimes I even later on in the day I see a film maybe where somebody's in France and they're having a cup of coffee and I feel jealous and I feel, okay, I can't do that today, I have to wait till tomorrow morning. I've often thought the thought of coffee and the smell of coffee is better than the coffee experience itself, really. It's something I've thought about quite a bit because it's just it's a funny thing. It's a kind of an addiction, but obviously a nice benign one. There's a lot of worse things that we addicted to, but it's just funny that it's so addictive that I'm kind of watching people drinking coffee on TV, feeling jealous of them. But yeah, so I've tackled so many different things, tried to reduce some of the bad things, increase some of the good things, and I would say it has improved things. I was quite sick in January. Now that was kind of separate. It was kind of a flu for 3 weeks. That was utterly miserable. It was just really bad flu at the start of the year for 3 weeks. It was just, I was totally knocked out, no energy at all. But apart from that, then February was probably pretty good. March, much better, and certainly up to 2 weeks ago was doing reasonably well. But then last Thursday I was sick all day, so vomiting again for the first time in a while, for probably 2 months, 3 months. And then yesterday, a week later, vomiting again. So that's very frustrating in that it's kind of come back now. And again, it's a week from each other, which is something that nobody can kind of pinpoint why something like this should be happening once a week. So I did go to a specialist, kidney specialist, urologist, and when I said it to him, he goes, yeah, that would be totally consistent what you have. There's an infection building up maybe in the kidney, and it builds up, you get sick, and then your immune system kicks in to reduce it. And I kind of felt a breath of fresh air about that, and I thought, okay, maybe that finally there's some reasoning to it. But then when I met him again about a month later, I think he said that the weekly sickness was a red herring. It was like undid what he said previously, and that's not unusual. This is just, and I consider myself lucky with this thing because there's people with far more serious things to be worried about, and I'm very conscious of that there's people with very serious disease and all this kind of stuff, so totally understand that. So what I'm talking about is more the general, describing the generic experience of going through the medical system with a condition, rather than taking pity on myself necessarily, But so it's like everybody has a different opinion, and then people say, well, you have to go to a specialist for that. But a lot of the time it seems to be quite basic stuff that everybody should know. Am I naive in kind of saying that? I don't know, that the thousands of people would have the same thing that I have. Anyway, so it was interesting seeing the journey through the health system for a year, to just with endless tests, CT scans, the other name from the ultrasound scan. And I even did a CT on my brain. Was that a CT? No, it's an MRI. Yeah, MRI on my brain. Because I'd been getting so many headaches, the GP suggested MRI on the brain. And to somebody like me who has health anxiety, to be told that was pretty tough. And I know he was doing it in a preventative way, but when you've health anxiety and it's like we have to measure the brain, it's God. I mean, there's only two results from that. There's no in between, really. It's like you're perfectly great, or it's good luck, nice knowing you. That was basically what I was thinking going into it. So it's, if anybody listening to this has health anxiety, I think you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. And it's one of the most irrational anxieties there is. It's particularly insidious one. Oh, it can be horrible sometimes. It just makes the most average ailment feel very insurmountable to manage. But anyway, the MRI, thank God, that turned out to be fine. But beforehand, it was torture leading up to that. And in fact, my daughter kindly brought me in because that was a struggle. It's just, this is Adair town here. It's just a beautiful little village on the way to Tralee. But so I basically now had every part of my body nearly scanned. The one that I have to look after the most is the bowel because family history. But pretty much every other part of the body scanned now, and I'm very lucky, and thank God they have turned out okay. So that's an important thing for me to emphasize, that I consider myself I'm one of the lucky ones. So what I'm just trying to capture, I suppose, is the fact, the health anxiety adds another element to it, but also it's just the frustration of being sick repeatedly and not knowing what the hell is causing it. Because there was a point where I was getting sick twice a week, and I was kind of going, this is a third of my life now is being spent in bed with a headache, sometimes vomiting, and that is not pleasant. I mean, it got so well after a year. It got to a stage where I was kind of going, okay, if I had the bargain that I had to write off one day a week, then fine, I'd be okay with it, as long as it's not serious, as long as it's not going to get worse than that, But not knowing what's causing it is the big mystery. But it was only after about the year, after been through lots of other tests, lots of other organs, on the suspicion that they might be causing it, which it seems now has been ruled out, that they, migraine is being talked about, but I don't even know what migraine is. It seems to be another word for a headache. I don't know what's causing it. I don't know what the physical thing that's happening within me is. But the GP prescribed a painkiller for that, and that has had mixed success. I forget the name of it now. Zopitram or something like that. But the first time I took it, it worked, and I slept and I woke up fine. And then other times that I've taken it, it hasn't. The last time I took it, I ended up vomiting. It was almost like it backfired. So that's kind of got mixed results. So it's a year now since I've been through this journey through the health service, trying to diagnose a chronic weekly sickness, which seems to be coming from, well, not from nowhere. I mean, there certainly is. Life is stressful. There's stress, there's anxiety, there's kind of coping, maybe with maybe eating poorly. Having said that, I mean, the life that I lead now is, I mean, I'm nearly a monk at this stage, because everything, I've cut back in everything. I don't smoke, I practically don't drink. I maybe have probably the equivalent of a pint or two per year, which is pushed it all the way down to that. I exercise reasonably well. I've joined the gym in last November. I close the rings on this Apple Watch nearly every day. So I'm kind of doing all the right things, which I'm proud of, but it's still not closing off whatever the hell this is. And it's the cyclical nature of it as well that seems to be confusing people. And surely that's a clue as to what's happening, like the cyclical nature, the fact that it comes up once a week. But that doesn't seem to be enlightening the doctors at all. They seem to be very confused by it. So it's, I mean, obviously, and the other, I mean, mental health and physical health are linked. And up to recently, even though I was suffering from anxiety and mental health issues, it never really influenced me physically, thank God. But now it looks like the two are interacting. It's coming out as physical sickness as well. That's it's hard to rule that out as a link. There's going to be certainly going to be an effect of that. Is this the right exit? I hope it is. No signpost at all. And so part of the frustrating thing is, because this has lasted a year, there's been so many events which have been ruined by it. Last summer I would go to events like Fastnet Film Festival, and I was sick for one of the days of that, and it's kind of it's frustrating that way, and I don't know what to do to prevent it, particularly when I'm travelling, and I'm travelling now, and hopefully once I have been sick, the immune system is back, is probably working overtime now, so that'll hopefully keep me from getting sick again this weekend. That would very rarely happen, because I think once the immune system is kicked in for a day or two, probably impossible to get sick. But that's it. Cyclical weekly sickness. I don't know if anybody else has had it or knows what could be causing it. Something in my body which is being cycled every week, and it's insidious, and it's really just totally frustrating going through it and trying to understand what's causing it. Anyway, I suppose if it sounds familiar to you, if you've been through it, or if you know what the hell causes this weekly kind of nausea, headache, then let me know. Otherwise, see you soon.